Good morning, everybody. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
There's C. Gavignoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World Collective Energy Share. So, where do we want to start today? That's the question.
I don't know. I like what we were talking about earlier about the letting go of things
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
that
yes.
that no longer
Yeah.
are
Serve us.
needed for where we're going.
Yeah, so let me describe what happened. So yeah, Sarah, my husband went to Germany and I dropped off at the airport Saturday, and so I was like, oh, and my daughter was working, I had the house to myself. I was like, okay, I can do this luxurious like meditation. And I hadn't pulled a card in, I don't know, quite a while. Pulled an ISIS card. So I pulled a card and I never had gotten before. And this is just a great place to start because it was just a great thing to look at because I sort of hesitated, but the card was called Proper Burial for Freedom. And there like in the book that goes with the deck, the ISIS deck, there's like, like rituals and stuff. And sometimes I look at them and just see how I can incorporate them into my stuff. Um, and And so the ritual part, I just looked at the ritual. I was like, oh my goodness, this is such a great little like exercise to do, even in Trinity. But like, so the whole ritual had to do with um, cast, yeah, like let go with that which no longer naturally belongs in the land of the living. Let go of everything that's in my energy field that doesn't serve me anymore. Um, uh, And like, so they use it in the form of of Osiris, right? Because obviously this is the Egyptian thing. I have to look at this, my little readers here. Um, I now choose my own free will to cast into the loving care of Osiris all attachments, histories, beliefs, and beings of any influence that are not aligned with unconditional love. I release you now through all time and space with love and respect. Go in peace. You may not return me ever. Our contracts are now. I had it completed and dissolved, and I set you free. I set myself free. So be it. And I just love that. I don't really do that kind of stuff in other things because I'm just sort of like, yeah, Trinity, we just sort of take care of all of it. But it just felt really good when I read it. And so Sarah was talking about how she suddenly yesterday was feeling some weird displaced something something. And I said, well, I did this. So then this popped into my mind. I said, well, I did this Saturday night. I even lit a gold and a silver candle for the male and female, energy. And yeah, okay, it's a little ritualistic, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to luxuriate in this and just have a little fun. And I'll tell you what, it hit me right here. Like when I first saw the like let go stuff from, that no longer serves us in the land of the living, it was just like the first thing was like almost like a breath in, like what? And then even though I had no conscious clarity of what that was about. But I'll tell you what, I had the best meditation, and all I felt was this light. And from the center of me was this huge light that came out in my meditation with that. And on the outside of that, I saw this green aura, which was incredible. And it was almost like it was transmuting, right, as it was coming. Like there was stuff that was just coming out. And I was saying goodbye to it with gratitude. And there was all this love. And it was amazing. I even took a bath. I left the candles burning. I took a bath, an Epsom salt bath. And I like continued in that. I mean, it was like a good full 2 hours of just resolution and freedom. And so like after that, I was like, yeah. So I would recommend that. Like it's a really nice little like exercise to do to just
Well,
consciously
and
resolve
if
all
you
that.
think about it, you in the cycle of the death rebirth, you it's most efficient and effective if you start with that clean slate. And that's the point of the chaos and the letting go of everything before that. So it is a clean slate,
Hmm.
which is all the history and all the things that you're attached to, and that even goes back to expectations, because those are attached to you.
Oh, I'll tell you what, last week, going back to talking about what we talked about last week at the expectation resolution, so powerful. And I got so many texts from people who watched this video after or listened to the audio and they're like, oh my God, so perfect. It was like exactly what I didn't realize I needed, what was going on with me, blah, 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 blah. So, and I was very conscious of watching stuff and expectation last week after we did that resolution. I also feel like, so then that leads us to what sort of feels like is going on too, is that there's still like, so now we're like existing more and more out of time and space, right?
Right.
And so we recognize in that outside of time and space, the expectation is like, expectation comes through time and space and separation, like we were talking about last week. But we're having a little bit of a disconnect between that creation and the way it's coming together. So we felt like there's been a couple of things that were like sort of weirdly disconnected. Like the creation came through at a very non-aligned time.
Right.
And
Right.
that's happened several times for me. So that happens for you. That's, that's sort of going on for you. And it's like, okay. So I feel it and know it as being created. I trust it, whatever it is being created, has been created. I have created it, right? And so whatever I feel like maybe this week is, it's in that lack of expectation, in that place of I just am trust and fulfilled, know that this creation happens. There's an alignment for us to make that aligns it all to perfectly come together in the way it's intended, I guess.
Right. Well, and it's also maybe a difference of instead of seeing it come together in that perfect timing, is part of that creation.
And allowing it.
Right. And trusting that it just will.
It just will. And the funny thing is, like, what I heard was, allowing. Stop trying. And like, there are all these little tiny, good morning, Gloria. There's all these little tiny things. So like last week we were talking about all these hidden layers of expectation, right? So maybe this week is talking about all these little hidden layers of control, of the perception of control. Because what I'm hearing is the reason that doesn't line up is because we're still trying to control some things
Right.
by what the mind thinks, right?
Right. How it should be. So it's still that
expectation.
It's still that finessing of that creation instead of just visualizing it done, trusting that it's done. Yeah. Right.
Because I feel like there's something that because
there's something big in that. That's
and this is here we go. We've just hit that Mercury spot again that we got to put our finger on.
yeah.
Right. Good morning, Suzanne. So, so what would that be? There's something there because
I know last week, Laurel and I texted a little bit about this, from my perspective, switching the creation statement from a statement of expectation to a statement of knowing. So
I didn't when you said that, I didn't understand that because to me, that's what a creation statement is a statement of knowing and creation. So maybe it's
but I think a lot of times that's the piece that's missing, even from as far back as, the movie The Secret and then all the Abraham manifesting things is it can't just be faking it till it shows up. And it can't be, this is my wish list. It's that looking to that full body, it has no choice but to show up because I know that it will. And it's not no from the head, no from the heart.
Well, yeah, but then isn't that just adding extra words though, instead of just trusting that it
doesn't? I'm not saying that it's words in the creation statement. I'm saying that it's the energy that I personally.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right. And maybe that's just, and that's what I was thinking is like, maybe it's just aligning because I always wonder if everybody gets that, what the importance is of the creation statement and the intention within Trinity, right?
Right.
Because that is the instantaneous creation versus the intention of it.
sometimes I do think it helps to sit and talk about it and develop that full picture and then say all of that instead of trying to get it to that one succinct sentence, because I find that that limits it to the words of the sentence. I find that
It all depends. I would say it all depends on the individual, honestly,
Well,
because
that's
it's
true.
so,
I can only speak for myself.
yeah, because I would say that it helps somebody to focus their energy if they have a succinct creation statement, right? And then I also, then once they're happy and trust that, then it's like mine are very broad, right? Like mine, if when I use them, are just like, okay, I am the divine embodied, right? Or I realize my divine embodiment, or things like that, without
Right.
very specific stuff. But I've also done all of this work in the past that has really allowed my mind to get out of the way, because this is all about getting the mind out of the way, right? But if the mind thinks, well, I left this detail out, so of course it's not going to manifest, there's that underlying expectation, right?
Yeah. Laurel commented, I think it's a process, for lack of a better word, of coming to an inner knowingness and acceptance of the belief.
Right.
And Gloria says that makes sense, Laurel. Hi,
Yeah.
Sarah.
I mean, it's so that's the practice. So that's the whole practice of creation statement versus an intention, right? So the creation statement is I'm
Right.
creating it now. I'm creating it now. And the intention that we incorporate in Trinity has to do with I'm holding myself with a vibration where that is my reality, is that creation, right? So that is instantaneous. That's not like there doesn't need to be
Right.
a process. It doesn't need to be expectation. I know it's already done. And where we are in the mind, that's what, yeah, it is the process of getting to the place of where we are, where the mind doesn't have to expect and just knows
And
and trusts.
and that brings me back to something you said in your living the shift thing on Thursday, where you said that, there are all these little, there's as many dimensions in as there are dimensions out.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that as everything and all possibilities already exist within me. So it's just a question of aligning with where it exists within me and then operating from that place. So it's aligning with the intention that's already done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And all those pieces connected for me last week. And maybe that's fixing that, not fixing, but aligning with that, the timing of things brings it back to aligning with it already done.
Yes. Well, and they're not having to be a process to get there, right? That it's just done. Yeah, Laurel says, I do believe in act as if. I agree, Angela, that that's what a creation statement is. And for some, it's such a paradigm shift, it doesn't always come easy. Well, and it's also, yeah, it's such a paradigm shift for many that it takes an adjustment period of catching up to it, of that understanding. So, and that's where it was funny, because I was like, yeah, and I understand that some are just still in a different process of it, which is cool,
Right.
But yeah, you're right. And it's almost like when we align, and that's actually, it's funny you say that, because I did do that in my meditation this morning, was like aligning all thought, word, and deed, and all of multidimensional me, meaning all dimensions in and out, like kind of thing, because
Right.
to unify, right? I mean, that's sort of built into the intentions, but I think sometimes it's good to repeat it to ourselves to remember that that's what we were doing or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because it's come to this point, I'm talking about all that multidimensionality stuff. It's come to this point where it's like, okay, so anybody who's watched the OA, we were talking about the OA before we got on, and finishing, and Gloria asked, and trusting then. So yes. Okay, so I'm made about recognizing alignment and getting out of the way. So is it maybe about recognizing alignment and getting out of the way? Well, yeah, because it's the trust. That's the trust of the alignment, right? But anyway, so we
We've gotten so smart about instantaneous creation that even the tiniest little bit off magnifies, because it's happening so right now.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I've noticed lately that if I feel a little tiny something, like it's almost like a little lever will be like if something's like in the way, like I can feel it like a little lever's like closed in this little spot and it's like, oh no, just let that flow. Like open that up, whatever that is. I don't have to look at it anymore. It's so wonderful and easy. But anyway, so we were talking about the um the OA, right? And that goes to the multidimensionality. But the thing that was interesting, so there's a little spoiler alert if you haven't watched the second season of the OA. I'm not going to tell you the end, but there is a part about allowing, like there's a lot of talk of multidimensionality and moving from one version of ourselves to another into different dimensions and this. And so part of the challenge in the second season had to do with jumping into another version of you in another dimension and then, but also, I see Laurel said she just finished watching it last night. Jumping into another dimension and also like into yourself, and then also allowing that part of you to be completely melded instead of one version of you like managing the other. And
Right.
that felt like I was like, yeah, that's really important because I think sometimes we forget like, well, we think about our consciousness in these little like bubbles, right?
Mhm.
And we forget that this here is just such a tiny part of our full consciousness, right?
Right.
So important to allow all parts of our consciousness to be incorporated back together. And that I think helps the alignment in the multidimensionality. That's
Well,
what I
and
was
it
saying.
helps with as she found the strength to find the strength and the drawing on all your resources
Right.
for the
Oh,
full power.
so Gloria S. Sorry, the OA. So the OA is an awesome show that they created on Netflix. If you get Netflix, you can watch it. They just earlier this month or last month uploaded the second season. So you have two seasons there you can watch. It's really fun, very different. I love Britt Marling because she tends to be in these really different expanded consciousness kind of. She was also
Well, and
like kind of movies and stuff. Yeah.
I forget the name of the guy, but he was in the Harry Potter series.
Oh, Isaac Roberts. Yeah, he was Lucius Malfoy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
love
but
everything
he
he
was
does.
also he was also in a show that was on NBC. Scott and I were talking about this weekend. He was also in a show on NBC that was like one season and it was called Awake and it was a really awesome show if you
Mm.
can find it. Because this is and actually funny, it's another one about multiple like timelines, dimensions or whatever. So the show it only went one season and and he played a police investigator, right? And he was in a car accident. And in the car accident his son and his wife were in the car with him. And the whole show is about two timelines where one is where his wife lived and his son died, and the other timeline is where his son lived and his wife died. And the thing is, he goes to sleep and he switches into the other timeline and he goes back and forth. And they did it on NBC, and it was really cool. They closed it up after one season. They actually closed it up pretty well, I thought, for like, only having one season, but it's definitely worth a look up if you can find it. It was called Awake. So yeah, so he tends to be in those kind of movies too, apparently,
Yeah.
or in shows or TV shows and stuff. So anyway, we digress. I'm talking about cool
It's a
stuff. Yeah.
great distraction.
Yeah. But actually, what what has been coming up for many, and so it's like this. Actually, I can sort of start seeing things tying together. When I'm talking about like time to let go, like to resolve and complete, and with gratitude, like let go of these things that don't serve us anymore, whatever that is, agreements, beliefs, beings, or whatever that we have, have had interaction with, or other facets of ourselves. we I'm trying to chase this before it runs out of my my consciousness. But it's really important to have that gratitude, right? And the way I look at in the completion of it and letting it go is I allow it all to just be like sort of the wording and that whole ritual thing. The one thing that I didn't like was like, well, you're not allowed to ever come back. It's like, well, no, because actually what I'm doing is completing the agreement for why you were separate and why you had to reflect back to me. And now you're being incorporated back to the whole in
Right.
love and unconditional love and wholeness so that I don't have to have that pulled out to be separate and to have it as a lesson or lack or something, something in lack at
Right.
all anymore. So
Right.
that goes back to this whole like wholeness, right? So you talk about the allowing the wholeness of the consciousness to come together. Oh, this seems really important now. Okay, this took a little bit of talking, but and then like I'm talking about the show that I haven't even thought about forever, but the whole thing that was really cool about that show that I was talking about with Isaac Roberts in it is that he learned to start using his flipping back and forth between the two dimensions or timelines or whatever to solve cases because like he would go into the other one and there'd be something slightly different, but he would go and look into, say, a certain person or a certain pattern or a certain whatever that happened in the other timeline. And he was able to start solving cases based on that, which was a really cool way of doing
It
the
is.
I was
Yeah.
really disappointed that they closed it up after one season, but I think it might have been a little early on before people got it, but it was on NBC, so kudos to them for
That's
doing
right.
it. But
Yeah.
so
Suzanne says, I'm with Gloria. Um, co-create and then trust it is done.
well, yeah. And the thing is, so we say
Know
that.
it's done.
Well, and that's the thing that we were talking about earlier is the key is yes, definitely that. And maybe it's setting yourself so that you can do that because many times the mind tries to those are the little levers of control that the mind tries to put in, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And maybe, well, that's the whole like trying to let it all sync up in time is like, well, no trying, it just is perfectly there. But that's
Right.
all allowing all these parts.
I think as we allow more of these parts to come in and assimilate,
Hmm.
I think the timing will get kind of clunky until it becomes seamless. Ooh, that
Well,
was
because
really
every little piece that's not
good.
yet assimilated is one of those levers that makes it a little clunky. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't
That
it?
feels great. I can feel that. I can feel the levers flipping. Gosh, that feels really good.
Like, and now I'm just sort of feeling like a racetrack, where they just open all the gates, like,
Okay,
let her go. Let her go, baby.
that's right.
Yeah, that feels really good.
Yeah. Well, and that accentuates that every piece is important. Every piece plays a part, and that there's all the more reason to accept that the what we deem judge less than desirable, they play equally as important role as those that we deem desirable.
It's
It's
another
all
facet.
important.
Yeah, it's another facet of that acceptance of those dark pieces too, right? That we haven't felt were so savory.
Wow, that
It's
feels
just,
like a good breath.
it's almost like we shifted a perspective that was really important to shift in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's that alignment across so many different dimensions and pieces of consciousness. And it just, oh my gosh, just even saying, I can just see all these levers just flipping open and everything just sort of flowing in like this big, huge, awesome flow of river or whatever,
Yeah.
So, oh, that seems to be it. I think that's where we are. I think that's what we do.
Yeah. I
Allow that,
agree.
just like let's just allow that, all of that to come together.
Yeah, I'm trying to
And
write it down.
yeah, thanks, because I'll forget it in like 5 minutes. Actually, I'm going to write that down too. And this is again, so it's funny because we've noticed like, things come back around and it's like stuff we've talked about before, but it's a slightly different perspective or it's a different part of it or it's at a different level of consciousness where it comes back around again. So, um, it's funny, I start writing it down and it's like, oh, well, we've done this a million times, right? The mind tries to say that, but it's like,
Right, right,
no, this is a different level of it altogether.
right.
It's like the spiral is going up. Prashant said, Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Thanks for joining
Yeah.
us. But it's sort of like the spiral, is it's almost like we're going into the center of the spiral so that all of it becomes so clean and clear and flowing, the whole spiral, in and out. All
Yeah, I
right.
can see that. I can see that spiral movement, and it's not just a spiral within a stationary background. It's everything moving, everything spiraling.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Both of us just took that deep breath at the same time. All right, so we got to the point. That was quick today. Let's get there. So all of that, so we can do that alignment. We'll talk about that. I say Vershawn asked about the hand orb. So we'll talk about that after. Let's get this done. So
Oh, hey,
whatever is, what was that?
Debbie joined us.
Yeah. Good morning, Debbie. So yeah, all of that, and a nice, beautiful little bow of like, wow. I can just, I'm already seeing so much. I can
I know,
barely
I
even
know.
talk. So let's just go do all that, shall we? Let's all just do it. Or as opening as last week was, this one seemed to be like exponentially more. It was just like, oh, okay, I could just sit here and watch those little levers open forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. I can't even tell you what I saw because I saw so many things that were just like, it was almost like, because we have concentricities of things inside of things, like dimensions inside of dimensions inside of dimensions,
Right.
and like levels of consciousness and all that kind of stuff. It was just like watching doors open and seeing how one little thing here affects all these other things. If we have the lever
Right.
closed, it's holding it
Right.
back, right? So it was just like I can't even like begin to explain now what I was watching.
Right. And each one was like a little rock in the stream that was
Yes.
impeding the flow. Yep.
Yes, it's funny that you say that because in the middle of it, I started laughing to myself because my stomach started making these loud noises, like gurgling noises, right? And I was out there and I saw myself open my mouth and I opened my mouth and all these pebbles fell out. So it's funny that you say that. And it was so funny because I was like, what is that sound? It was so weird. But it was like, yeah, I saw myself open and it was like a few came out and then a few more came out. And then this whole like, this whole like pile of them came out like I was picking up these pebbles and I was like, oh, that feels so much better.
Yeah. Good.
So it's funny you saw the pebble thing. Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, that just felt incredible. And I was looking at what I could see are all the things that I'd had the sense of how doing one thing here or in this place or like how it can affect here, like another part of me over there or another, it's like our talking about the mosquitoes and ticks, right? And that they have a bigger part in like, the fairy realm and other dimensions
Right.
and that there's a connection that we don't see because we're so myopic on what they do here. So it's like all this kind of stuff. But anyway, I was just watching all these doors open and I was like, and then I kept on seeing this rainbow. That was really cool. I kept on seeing this rainbow flow through the collective, like we were, and the rainbow kept on getting bigger because all of the other colors that are not on the spectrum started incorporating. So it was just like getting bigger, and it was just like sort of like you see like a scanner light, but it was like the whole rainbow, and then it was getting bigger and bigger. It was like we're incorporating more of ourselves to the whole, and that was so
Oh,
wonderful.
nice.
Yeah, that was
That's
really cool.
nice.
Well, we'll see where this
Awesome.
takes us. Yeah, that was awesome. We'll see where that takes us this week. That was amazing.
Yep. And if y'all have any comments, those that are watching or watch on the replay, comment. Let us know how it's going, what's coming up for you, because if it's coming up for you, it might be coming up for someone else too.
Yeah, that's why we do this, and this is why we ended up doing this live like this because we know that it's a collective energy share, which means that it's going on at the collective and it's just being expressed in our individual realities. So it's
Right.
the same and different for everyone.
Right.
It's different in its individual embodiment, and it's the same from the higher levels. So it really does apply. And I've heard a lot of people say it's great to listen to these because they are like, oh my God, this makes so much sense, or this makes so much sense, and this is going
Right.
on with me, and I didn't even like. I got one set of texts last week that was like, oh my gosh, I've been so puzzled about something that's been going on with me, and I didn't even see it because I was so like microscopic about it until I was listening to what you guys talked about, and then I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. So
There it is.
yeah.
Yep.
So, thank you, and we will see you guys next week. This is Angela
Thanks
Coulter,
for
and
joining.
yep, Angela Coulter, and
Sarah C. Gavignoni.
signing off on this week's Ascended World. All right, now if I can find a way to close this down.